What's up, everyone? Now, sorry for the wait on this podcast. It's been a very busy few months for the business, especially with the current COVID climate. Now, today is all about our last, but just as important, fifth key to thrive, which is recovery. It's certainly the one most people do not understand, or should I say, do not maximize as well as they could. If you exercise regularly, then recovery is the time when your body repairs and comes back stronger, and what you do can help speed it up and maximize the results. If you're like me, most of the things we're going to discuss I love to do anyway, so my battle is making sure I only have 1 or 2 rest days a week. Most of us struggle to find the balance of either not recovering enough or recovering a little too often. So what is recovery and how do we do it right? An article from the National Academy of Sports Medicine, NASM, introduces this topic better than I could, and it states, answering these questions starts with a basic understanding of homeostasis, stress, and recovery within the body. Homeostasis is a state of balance within the body that occurs when the variables in a system, example, pH or temperature, are regulated to keep internal conditions stable and relatively constant. Stress is a stimulus that overcomes or threatens to overcome the body's ability to maintain homeostasis. Recovery is the body's process for restoring homeostasis. And the human body is designed to tackle stress. We either adapt or perish, hence the concept of survival of the fittest. Exercise is the stress we place on the body along with other life stresses that we may encounter. So let's look at the different modalities of obtaining homeostasis via recovery. Now, when we think of recovery, most people just think of a beach break or sitting and lying on the sofa resting. And sometimes this is great, but we need to discover the best way to recover so we can get back to doing what we want and feel great at work, with family, or when playing a sport or working out. So let's start with basic mobility. Being able to use the joint through its full range of movement seems a self-explanatory bonus for our bodies and day-to-day life before we even look at trying to perfect a physical discipline. For example, we often hear clients say they don't know why they can't get, say, the depth in their squat. And sometimes they've just decided they can't, but other times the client is just frustrated that they can't do this. And this is often a mobility issue. The client does not know how to improve range of movement, so do the squats, but they never correct the imbalances. And this is why we always do a full assessment with our PT clients before starting any programs, because without this, we can't make a bespoke program that suits the client's strengths and weaknesses. Now, how many of us can honestly say we have full mobility through all of our joints? How many of us can say we even spend much time thinking about that? Especially when this is a self-compounding issue of not having the movement. It then gets ignored and then our body has to adjust for the imbalance. This causes more imbalances until another joint loses that range of movement and so on. Now, this is why activities such as yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi, stretching, Self-Myofascial Release, mobility work, and physio or massage are so important and should never be underestimated. So as obvious as it sounds, if you want to be injury-free, ache-free, you want to move well and decrease joint issues into old age, you must include mobility work before and after exercise, but also spend a little more time on this during your recovery days. The more you do this practice, the more you understand your own body, what it needs, and the benefits only increase. So another modality for recovery we can consider is something that people call mindfulness, and it's become a bit of a buzzword in the last few years, but I think one reason for this is it removes some of the ancient esoteric stigmas that can turn some people off when people discuss things like meditation, qi, alternative medicine practices. However, when you unwrap a lot of the dogma that sometimes covers the real meaning of meditation, even prayer, and the different ways people try to tune into themselves, we get to the same place really, which is taking time out to become mindful of the moment you're in, feel gratitude, become more attuned to your own body and mind, and as a result becoming more relaxed, more confident in yourself, and reducing symptoms of a busy modern world such as fear, anxiety, depression, and stress. Unfortunately, our education system heavily focuses on the acquirement of information, and these institutions seem to miss the education of how to think and deal with life when it comes to future careers and in everyday personal lives. So coping mechanisms, and parents who also do not know how to pass this on struggle to educate their children on these skill sets, and this is why we see more and more anxiety and mental health issues than ever before. Mindfulness and the practices that come with it were always treated as pseudoscience in the past, but we have unequivocal evidence now to the benefits of these practices and how they must be integrated into our daily lives to keep us mentally balanced and enjoying this beautiful life that we have. There are lots of ways to practice mindfulness, from apps on our phones to classes in person or online. There's something for everyone. We provide a few of these in our classes each week to our members to add to the daily or weekly routine, but there's something out there for anyone, whatever your need. Now, breath work is another modality that's great, and it can fall under mindfulness, but it also has a plethora of benefits physically too. And thousands of years ago, the Taoists developed a system called Dao Yin, which means breath therapy, and they understood even that far back the benefits of breathing to increase mental and physical health. And this was evolved further by the Chinese Buddhists into what is known now as Qigong. And some of the more extreme practices have been made famous, if you've heard of them, by the Shaolin monks that can demonstrate astounding physical feats using the Qigong exercises. Now, ancient meditation practices in India also developed these practices to use breathing for health and to achieve enlightenment. And this was later developed into movements that incorporated held postures or stretching movements, and finally was modernized in the early 1900s by Western influences and packaged as modern yoga that most people practice today. Now, practices like yoga and Tai Chi focus on moving meditation that combines breath with the movement. And this helps the practitioner focus on what they're doing easier than just seated meditation. And it also brings the feeling of unity between the breath and the body, which in turn helps the practitioner feel more centered and more focused. In the last 10 years, there's been an ever-growing influence who's only been catapulted into the public eye due to his outstanding feats, multiple world records, and now medical evidence that proves breathing exercises used correctly can have a far bigger impact on our health than modern medicine ever realized. He's the first to prove that the autonomic immune system, previously thought to be out of our influence, can be manipulated by Wim Hof's breathing techniques. In fact, to prove the point, he even trained a large group of random people to copy his results. What Wim Hof is capable of was long viewed as scientifically impossible, and it wasn't until the first Radboud University study in 2011 that things kicked off. The study showed that by using his method, Wim was able to voluntarily influence his autonomic nervous system, which was thought impossible till then. This groundbreaking finding, published in PNAS and Nature, established credibility, quite literally rewrote biology textbooks, and piqued scientists' curiosity. And here is a quote from Wim's website. Aimed to test if the results from the first study on Wim could be reproduced with a larger group, scientists injected 12 Wim Hof method practitioners with an endotoxin. Results showed that, like Wim, they were able to control their sympathetic nervous system and immune system response. Anti-inflammatory mediators were 200% higher, while pro-inflammatory mediators were 50% lower. This shows potentially important implications for conditions associated with excessive or persistent inflammation, especially autoimmune diseases. That's 2004 Knox et al. Using cold therapy is another rehabilitation technique being used in multiple ways, from cryogenic to ice baths and cold showers. As well as celebrities like Kevin Hart, famous sports people have made these techniques more popular, and Wim Hof is also called the Iceman because of his use of cold therapy alongside his breathing techniques. The secret to the Wim Hof method is the combination of these two techniques. His website describes the three pillars of his method as breathing, cold therapy, and commitment. Now, I came across similar breathing techniques during my time in China, and I've studied yogic, Taoist and Buddhist meditation and breathing techniques, but Wim Hof's method is the first time I felt such a dramatic benefit, which I truly believe is because of the relationship between cold and breath. If this sounds intriguing, then head over to www.wimhofmethod.com for loads of info. I'll be demonstrating a few of these things in our groups as well for Fit2Thrive, from my experience of about 20 years of travel and study. But you can download his app and give it a try, because it basically has the benefits of increased energy levels, better sleep, reduced stress levels, heightened focus and determination, increased willpower, and a stronger immune system. Pretty interesting stuff, eh? So let's move on now from the Wim Hof breathing and cold, and let's have a little look at something that we all have to do every single day and is massively taken for granted and very misunderstood, and that is sleep. The wonderful topic of sleep. Now I'm going to dwell on this topic a little longer than usual because I want to educate and I want to inform more people about the importance of getting regular sleep. We all have a very different relationship with our nighttime friend and Greek god of sleep, Hypnos, but it can also be a turbulent relationship too. When our body releases the hormone melatonin, the signal is sent to sleep. Sleep is a time when our body starts a multitude of important processes all over the body, and the one I'm interested in today, which is very time dependent, is the process within our brain. And there is a lot of misinformation about sleep and a strange culture we've developed around kudos to those that appear to operate on 4 to 5 hours and still can be incredibly successful. Now, Professor Matthew Walker, author of Why We Sleep, and one of the leading authorities on sleep, stated, "Every disease that is killing us in the developed nations has a casual and significant links to a lack of sleep." He says, "So that classic maxim that you may have heard, that you can sleep when you're dead, is mortally unwise advice from a very serious standpoint." Now, one thing is for sure though, science has proven that getting less than 7 to 8 hours per night can have an insidious effect on our long-term health. Incredibly, night shift work has been labelled a carcinogen by the World Health Organization. So let's have a look at why you may need to consider putting the right amount of sleep higher on your priority list, no matter what deadlines you may have looming. Let's look at my 3 most mind-blowing research facts on the lack of sleep. Number 1, in an all-nighter study session, you'll reduce your brain's capability of retaining information by 40%. That's 8 hours versus no sleep. This means proper sleep is essential to hit the brain's save button after learning something. Number 2, 6 hours of sleep for 1 week meant 711 genes distorted by the lack of sleep, and this meant downgraded immune system genes, what was upgraded? Inflammation, tumour promotion, cardiovascular disease, and stress. The natural killer cells, which is the immune system's assassins, with just 4 hours in one night gives a 70% reduction in that cell activity, meaning those deadly assassins just don't turn up for work, much like your cognitive ability as well. And number 3, this one about daylight saving time blew me away when I read it. When we lose 1 hour of sleep in spring, we see a 24% increase in heart attacks that day. In autumn, when we gain that hour back, we see a 21% decrease in heart attacks. This profile also matches car accidents and even suicide rates. It's crazy. There's probably one medicine in this world that would prevent large amounts of illness and reduce death rates, and that is sleep. Sleep loss appears to be the real epidemic of the modern world, so let's look at some really useful information on our sleep and the cycles we go through each night so we understand this better. The sleepfoundation.org explains this really well. There are 2 main phases of sleep, Rem, which is rapid eye movement, which most of us have heard of, and the imaginatively named Nrem, which is just non-rapid eye movement. Both phases are crucial to getting the right type of sleep each night. Rem sleep patterns. During this Rem sleep, brain activity picks up, nearing levels seen when you're awake, and at the same time the body experiences atonia, which is a temporary paralysis of the muscles, with 2 exceptions, the eyes and the muscles that control breathing. Even though the eyes are closed, they can be seen moving quickly, which is how this stage gets its name. Rem sleep is believed to be essential to cognitive functions like memory, learning, and the creativity. Rem sleep is known for the most vivid dreams, which is explained by the significant uptick in brain activity. Dreams can occur in any sleep stage, but they are less common and intense in Nrem periods. Under normal circumstances, you don't enter REM sleep stage until you've been asleep for about 90 minutes. As the night goes on, REM stages get longer, especially in the second half of the night. While the first REM stage may last only a few minutes, later stages can last for around an hour. In total, REM stages make up around 25% of sleep in adults. Nrem sleep patterns is composed of 3 different stages. The higher the stage of Nrem sleep, the deeper the stage of sleep is considered. The first stage is stage 1 or N1. Now, this stage is essentially the drifting off stage, which usually lasts between 1 to 5 minutes. During N1 sleep, the body hasn't fully relaxed though. The body and the brain activity start to slow with periods of brief movements like twitches. There are light changes in brain activity associated with falling asleep in this stage. There's stage 2, N2. During stage 2, the body enters a more subdued stage, including a drop in temperature, relaxed muscles, and slowed breathing and heart rate. At the same time, brainwaves show a new pattern and eye movement stops. On the whole, brain activity slows, but there are short bursts of activity that help resist being woken by external stimuli. Stage 2 sleep can last for 10 to 25 minutes during the first sleep cycle, and each N2 stage can become longer during the night. Collectively, a person typically spends about half their sleep time in N2 sleep. Stage 3 N3 sleep is also known as deep sleep, and it's harder to wake someone up if they're in this phase. Now, muscle tone, pulse, and breathing rate decrease in N3 sleep as the body relaxes even further. The brain activity during this period has an identifiable pattern of what is known as delta waves. For this reason, stage 3 may also be called delta sleep or shortwave sleep. Experts believe that this stage is critical to restorative sleep, allowing for bodily recovery and growth. It may also bolster the immune system and other key bodily processes. Even though the brain activity is reduced, there is evidence that deep sleep contributes to insightful thinking, creativity, and memory. We spend most time in deep sleep during the first half of the night. During the early sleep cycles, the N3 stages commonly last for 20 to 40 minutes. As you continue sleeping, these stages get shorter and more time then is spent in REM sleep instead. There tends to be 2 types of people in our society. There's the early risers, or morning larks, and the nocturnal workers or night owls. There's so much information about how people get up at 4:30, they get so much more done, etc., and how many people feel the pressure of general work life, which tends to favour the morning lark. However, research suggests that this favouring of getting up early or staying up late may be genetic, so don't beat yourself up if you can't get up before the sun rises. That said, getting a few hours of sleep before midnight is going to help improve your quality of sleep throughout the night. So let's not forget the catastrophic effect working night shifts can have on your long-term health. Again, the key to having consistent waking and bedtimes is having consistent waking and bedtimes, and this helps give the body a pattern, which is so important to make sure we get through all of those cycles. Now here's 6 tips to get the best sleep. 1. Keep regular sleeping hours. Going to bed when you feel tired and getting up at roughly the same time helps teach your body to sleep better. Try to avoid napping where possible and ensure regular sleep and wake times. Number 2, confront sleeplessness. If you're lying awake unable to sleep, don't force it. Just get up and do something relaxing for a bit and return to bed when you feel sleepier. Number 3, create a restful environment. Dark, quiet, and cool environments generally make it easier to fall asleep and stay asleep. Try to remove screen devices from the bedroom. Their blue light only confuses the body's release of melatonin. And keep the bedroom cool at around 18 degrees. Number 4, write down your worries. If you often lie awake worrying about tomorrow, set aside time before bed to make a list for the next day. This can help put your mind at rest, and you can even journal before bed to help you unwind. Number 5, move more. Sleep better. Being active can help you sleep better, but remember to avoid vigorous activity near bedtime if it affects your sleep. And number 6, put down the pick-me-ups, which is caffeine and alcohol can stop you from falling asleep and prevent deep sleep. Caffeine can block sleep receptors for hours after drinking it. Caffeine has a 6 to 8 hour half-life and a 12-hour quarter life. And this means if you have coffee at lunchtime, it is still blocking quality sleep until midnight. You may even feel you can sleep after caffeine, but it will be blocking the ability to move through the needed cycles of sleep. So try to cut down on alcohol and avoid caffeine close to bedtime. Okay, let's move on from sleep. I want to talk to you a little about heat therapy, and one of those is using saunas. Now, I always preferred steam rooms until I started to discover the huge benefits of saunas. And once I started to use them regularly and in the right way, I felt incredible. And one of the leading researchers and collaborators of research into this topic is Dr. Rhonda Patrick. I first listened to her discussing the benefits of saunas on the Joe Rogan Experience, which further sparked my interest. But Dr. Rhonda Patrick's awesome website, foundmyfitness.com, has some fascinating info on loads of topics, especially saunas. And here are a few segments on why you should add sauna therapy into your regime for recovery. I like to get 3 times 15-minute sauna sessions per week at 80 degrees Celsius or 176 degrees Fahrenheit. Sauna bathing is associated with many health benefits, from cardiovascular and mental health to fertility and athletic endurance. It's generally considered safe for healthy adults and may be safe for special populations with appropriate medical supervision. But heat stress via sauna use elicits hormetic responses driven by molecular mechanisms that protect the body from damage, similar to those elicited by moderate to vigorous intensity exercise, and may offer a means to forestall the effects of aging. Furthermore, in a study involving 19 healthy adults, the effects of a single 25-minute sauna session were comparable to moderate physical exercise concerning cardiovascular measures. During sauna use or moderate exercise, the participants' heart rate and blood pressure increased immediately. But after the sauna or exercise session, participants' blood pressure and heart rate began to drop below baseline levels measured pre-sauna or exercise. Like exercise, long-term sauna use generally improves blood pressure, endothelial function, and left ventricular function in your heart and reduces inflammation. As described above, large prospective studies conducted in eastern Finland have shown that compared to men who only use the sauna once per week, moderate sauna users 2 to 3 times per week are 22% less likely to experience sudden cardiac death, and frequent users 4 to 7 times per week are 63% less likely to experience sudden cardiac death. In addition, the frequent sauna users were found to be 37% less likely to die from all causes of premature death, regardless of age, activity levels, and lifestyle factors. The normal cognitive function relies on sufficient blood flow to the brain and the peripheral nervous system, so cardiovascular diseases and cognitive decline often go hand in hand. For example, hypertension alters the structure of cerebral blood vessels and impairs blood flow to the brain. Poor cerebral blood flow is commonly observed in mice and humans and may contribute to impaired amyloid beta clearance, thereby accelerating the progression of Alzheimer's disease. In addition, heat exposure increases the production of BDNF to promote neurogenesis, the growth of new neurons in the brain. Findings from a large observational study of middle-aged men living in Finland demonstrated that men who used the sauna 4 to 7 times per week had a 65% reduced risk of developing Alzheimer's disease compared to men who used the sauna only 1 time per week. In a randomized, double-blind study of 30 healthy adults diagnosed with depression, participants who were exposed to a single session of whole-body hypothermia in which core body temperature was elevated to 38.5 degrees C or 101.3 degrees Fahrenheit, experienced an acute antidepressant effect that was apparent within a week of treatment and persisted for 6 weeks after treatment. Incredible. So if you've thought about going in the sauna, start to think about it a little bit more seriously. The effects are incredible. So let's move on to some deep tissue massage or physio. Now, most of us have probably had some experience of some form of massage or physiotherapy and at some point in our lives, but I do think the benefits are sometimes very misunderstood. And there are 2 main reasons why you might need to attend a specialist like this. Number 1, you have some form of injury, pain, or need rehabilitation after surgery. This is probably when most people have certainly used a therapist. This will help bring you back to normal function, and then at this point, this is where most people just stop, never thinking of therapy again. And then there's a number 2 person. Its ongoing treatment ensures we keep the body in an optimum condition with a full range of mobility and muscles that are well balanced and loose. If you think of your body as a car, then not using option 2 is the equivalent of never getting it serviced, not checking the oil or the tyres, and just waiting for some major issue, which always ends up bringing more stress and expense than 2 services a year and a regular check of oil and tyre pressure at home. So if we want to get the most out of our body, it's worth considering a regular checkup a few times a year at least to make sure we can iron out those tight areas and realign our bodies. Now, the benefits of this treatment is increased blood flow, removal of scar tissue, relaxation of tight areas in the muscle, which usually are known as knots, improvement of joint range, like we talked about at the start, the joint mobility, improved bodily awareness. And between these sessions, you can also consider what's called self-myofascial release and basically foam rolling. Self-myofascial rolling is an excellent technique used to inhibit overactive muscles and improve mobility of the myofascial tissues, having a positive impact on the cumulative injury cycle. While research is still emerging, leading theories suggest that the self-myofascial rolling has an overall effect on the central nervous system and a local mechanical effect on the tissues being rolled. When used in conjunction with a systematic assessment process and other modalities such as static stretching, foam rolling can be used to improve joint range of motion and restore optimal movement patterns. The individual may experience an immediate improvement in range of movement, as the mechanical pressure improves fluid movement, blood flow, and reduces myofascial adhesions. Now we'll move on to a different topic of nutrition, or your general diet. Again, this can be a very difficult subject to discuss with people, but nutrition can be a complex subject. It's very individual subject depending on the needs and tastes of the individual and what they want. I won't go into too much detail here as it would just take too long, but if you're looking for advice on a healthy, balanced diet, then we offer this service and get in touch. But there are lots of qualified individuals out there, but just be very careful of the dieting industry and random people online, as they often don't have your best interests at heart, or maybe they do but have misleading information. Go to someone qualified. So nutrition plays a huge part in not only fueling your active lifestyle, but also recovering from the effects of exercise and day-to-day life. And a well-balanced diet that includes balanced macronutrients, carbohydrates, fats and proteins, plus vitamins and minerals, and water. I won't go into this in any detail as it's a huge subject, but don't underestimate the impact of your diet for every part of your life and recovery. It's no exception. Hippocrates said, "Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food." Now, this was 2,500 years ago, and he was right. And this is simple truth, if you understand, will prevent so much pain and suffering in people's lives. After all, our bodies are made of what we consume. So if we give it what it needs, it'll perform for us. Our society tells itself that it's hard to eat well, that it's not true. It's all about the importance we put on something. And the dieting and fitness product industry tell people they need to pay for expensive supplements and products. Fast food chain advertise their food as cheap and alluring lifestyle choices, and they don't have your best interests at heart. So make time to prepare the food that will fuel your success in life. The evidence is undeniable that good nutrition each day will prevent disease, help extend your life, and improve mood and productivity. So give this part of your life some mindful attention each day to see dramatic changes. Well, I think we've covered the basics of recovery, and I know there's a lot in there. But you can always get in touch or do your own research on those modalities I mentioned. We cover all of this in our weekly classes, nutrition advice and personal coaching plans for our clients. And if you need help, we're always here for you. So our community is only £10 a month, and you get loads of extra advice dropped straight into our community pages. So you can subscribe to our Platinum group by checking our fit2thrive.co.uk website, and we'll soon have 2-week Fitness Made Simple course available, which covers all of the 5 keys to thrive and shows you everything you need to get started on your journey to a healthier body, and that's a free course. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. If you did watch this space for our next instalment, but ask yourself, why survive when you can thrive? Have an awesome day, everyone. See you later.